Hi.
Hi. Lovely to see you all. Fabulous.
Good to see you.
We know Beth.
Yeah, no.
From Dan's ago.
Lindsay, if you just let me know when you think we've got most people in and nobody in the waiting room.
Okay. Well, nobody in just now, but it might be that people trickle in.
I'm gonna start anyway, just because I like starting on time. We've got a packed schedule this morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on Zoom this morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Louise Wildish and I'm the Director of Engagement at People Dancing. And I am a white woman with my hair tied back. I'm wearing a black dress and behind me is sort of some leopard print wallpaper in pink and black. So as I said, well, you know, you've got to keep it fun, haven't you? I really appreciate you joining us this morning. I know there are so many of these types of things on Zoom, so your time is very precious to us, and I thank you for committing to joining us this morning. This is an 11 Million Reasons to Dance networking event that we often do in person. And the 11 Million Reasons Networking is a partnership between People Dancing, Paradance UK and Attenborough Arts Centre, and really it's a network for disabled dance artists, disability-led organisations and organisations that work with disabled people in dance to kind of come together, talk about current issues, national initiatives and opportunities really. So we do have a packed schedule this morning. Before we sort of crack on, I'm going to introduce Lindsay, who works for us at People Dancing and is our production manager today, all things technical, and she's going to do a bit of housekeeping with you, just so that we all know what's expected, and etc.
I am, thank you, Louise. So yes, my name's Lindsay. I'm a white woman in my 30s. I have very long, straight hair and I'm wearing glasses. And today I'm in my living room. We're absolutely thrilled that you've all joined us today. And before I hand you back to Louise, as she said, I just want to run through some housekeeping. So you'll see that today we are joined by sign language interpreters. So we have Lynn at the moment, but also Nicola as well today. And if you would like to see just their videos alongside the speaker videos, it is possible to pin their videos. So if you're not sure how to do that, you can hover over a video and then a little 3 dots should appear and you can add a pin there. And if you want to be able to pin multiple videos, you might be able to do that. Just leave me a message in the chat and I can perhaps set that up for you. You can also view subtitles today if you wish by clicking the closed caption icon along the bottom and selecting show subtitles. There is about a 3 to 5 second delay with that, but it does eventually catch up. I can't now see Lynn, so I'm just wondering if she's still visible for everybody else. Louise, can you see Lynn?
I can't see you either, Lindsay.
Okay.
No, I can't see Lynn.
I just want to make sure that she is visible before we go.
I've just taken over. She has disappeared. She's back now.
That's fine. So I will spotlight you now, Nicola. Sorry.
Can you spotlight Lindsay? Can you spotlight Lynn, please? I think she's back.
I think maybe connection just dropped out. Here we go.
Sorry, apologies. It just completely went and then came back. So I'm so sorry. I'm good again.
Okay, so I'm going
it must have dropped because everybody disappeared. Everyone's back now.
Okay, super. But I think we can see you again now. Great. So just to say, everyone, we want this to be a relaxed atmosphere today. So please do make yourself comfortable. Even though many have got videos on, please do just engage in the way that's right for you. A reminder that we're recording today. So if you don't wish to be seen, please switch your video off. Although breakout rooms later on will not be recorded. Of course, we know that life happens. So if you need to go and answer the door or let the dog out, please do that. But please first make sure your mic is muted and that your video is off, and then join us again when you're ready. So we do ask that you're muted throughout the session, apart from in the more interactive parts, especially in the breakout room. So please do turn your mics on then. And there are a few things we would just like you to locate before we begin, just to make the experience run smoothly. So down on the bottom left of your screen, hopefully you should see the stop and start video icon should you need it. And next to that, the mute icon as well. In the top right, there's a little icon that allows you to change your viewing format. So you can move between speaker and gallery view as needed, but we'd recommend you stay in gallery view perhaps today. We'll also be using the chat function today. So you can find that by clicking the chat icon along the bottom, and we might be sharing some things later in there. We'll also ask you to perhaps raise your hand, use the raise hand function in Zoom, and you can find that by clicking participants along the control bar. And then you'll either see raise hand as an option, or maybe 3 dots or more for the menu, and within that should be the option to raise hand. So I think that's all from me. Louise, please do add anything if I've forgotten. So I will hand you back to Louise. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lindsay. That was really great. And also just to say, you know, we've probably all been in Zoom meetings now several thousand times since March. But yeah, absolutely use the chat. I know some of you are already, but if there's something you want to say or you want to share, then the chat is the space to do that. So absolutely use that at any time. Okay, so we have a packed schedule this morning. Just to sort of fill you in, we have a couple of speakers, including Andrew Miller, at 10:30. We've got a breakout session, we've got a bit of a video, there's a little bit of interactive stuff as well, so hopefully there's a bit of something for everybody. Just to say, I think with some of the technical aspects in like the captions, we're sort of piloting this, so just do bear with us. Okay, so the first speaker today, because this network is about opportunities, is going to be John White from The Space, who we've asked to talk to us this morning about you may have seen the BBC Disability Commissions or Digital Commissions. So we just thought it'd be really great to hear from John about those commissions for those of you that are artists that may be interested in applying. And if you're not an artist in an organisation, just be really good to get a sense of what those commissions are and what the purpose is. So John, are you here? I think I saw you.
I am indeed, Louise. Good morning. Thank you very much
Welcome.
for the opportunity to speak to you all. I am a white man in my 40s. I'm joining you from my study in Southampton. I have some lovely pictures of the great outdoors on the wall behind me, so I can pretend I'm not looked down. And I'm wearing my customary navy blue cardigan uniform. Is it possible for me to share a couple of slides with you? Would that be all right if I could have screen share versions?
So I've just, I should have just allowed you permissions to do that.
That is brilliant. Thank you very much. Let me just do that. And then hopefully if the technology works, is it going to work? Yeah, can you see that title slide? Yeah, I'm getting a thumbs up. Excellent. So just a tiny bit of background about the space. We were set up by the Arts Council and the BBC about 7 years ago. We're an independent not-for-profit now, and we essentially help artists and cultural organisations to reach audiences, primarily online, but using digital technologies. We've commissioned, since we were founded, more than 250 digital projects. And we come alongside people who've often never done that type of work before to support them and give them the skills. Part of what we're trying to do is help people think through how to reach as wide an audience and as diverse an audience as possible with their work. So we provide training and support around that. And as well as our commissioning, we offer mentoring and we do webinars and we provide online resources. So that is us. Culture in Quarantine was a programme of activity that the BBC set up right at the beginning of lockdown. It's got various strands, but what we've been involved with is the commissioning strand, which initially was funded by BBC Arts and Arts Council England, and that started in sort of April, May time this year, looking at ways to support English artists to get work onto BBC platforms, and that was either audio or video work. So typically it was going out on iPlayer, on BBC Radio or BBC Sounds, and also got quite a lot of traction on social media, BBC Arts social media. So we commissioned those 25 projects, several of which were with disabled artists, and overall those reached more than 8 million people, which was great. And then we continued to work with those projects once they've had their sort of 2 weeks exclusivity with the BBC. They're still available on BBC platforms, but we also look at how they can get wider distribution. And a little opportunity that just mentioning there, we worked with the British Council, so some of those commissions were actually republished in China and in Japan, but we also looked at distribution within the UK. And then partly sparked by a conversation that Andrew Miller had with John T at BBC Arts, John T Claypole, a decision was made a couple of months ago to look at doing another round of Culture in Quarantine, specifically focused on working with artists with disabilities, and to mark the 25th anniversary of the Disability Discrimination Act, which, as you probably know, was earlier on this month. What was great is we've been able to get all 4 arts councils behind that initiative, along with BBC Arts. So it's a UK-wide programme. Again, it's about producing audio-visual works on BBC platforms. Typically, we're looking at short-form works, so sort of 10, 15-minute pieces, certainly no more than half an hour, although that can include episodic works, but the key is that each episode of a piece is reasonably so you can publish it. We're looking to commission 10 projects from this round. The budget range is from £3,000 to £8,000. The reason for that range is the audio pieces are often smaller budget works. Most of the video pieces tend to be at the upper end of that range. But the important thing to emphasize is, in addition to that commissioning budget, we have a network of digital associates and support, and that includes support from Unlimited as well, who are partnering with us on this. So that allows us to work alongside artists and fill any gaps in their skill set and help them to get the work onto the relevant BBC platforms. The brief is very broad, so works can respond to the disabled experience of living through the pandemic, but they absolutely don't have to. There is access support available for people to apply, including having the commissioning materials in alternative formats. And as I say, we're managing this scheme in partnership with Unlimited on behalf of the BBC and the Arts Councils, who are the funders. It is now live for online applications. So the link is at the bottom of the page there, and it'll be on my slide at the end, and I'll also pop it in the chat if that's okay. The deadline for applications is the middle of January, and we're aiming to give people a decision by the end of February, with works to be delivered to the BBC by the end of June. When they appear online will obviously depend, and on radio, etc., will depend on the BBC's broadcast schedules. But in the case of Culture in Quarantine 1, they were going out within sort of a week to a couple of months of being received. And that are the sort of headlines, but I'm happy to take any questions, and I will just give you, those are the contact details. So there's an email address there, and a web address where you can find the commissioning material. We are on Twitter and are tweeting about the opportunity regularly, and I'm also happy to share a contact phone number if anybody wants to call us, although it's fair to say our offices are not manned at the minute, but if you leave a voicemail message, someone will call you back, usually the same day, to discuss your inquiry. And that's it for me, so I'm going to just stop sharing my screen now. And as I say, I'm happy to take any questions now if we have a minute or two.
Anybody got any questions for John?
What is this unlimited thing about?
You say, what is the Unlimited thing?
Yeah.
So Unlimited are the Disabled Arts Commissioning Programme. So they specialise in supporting disabled artists more generally, and we're partnering with them around that support. So we have a strong digital specialism that we can bring to bear, but where artists are requiring additional support, then we're partnering with Unlimited on that. And Abby from Unlimited is on the call and has put their web address in the link there in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we will post this session as well. We will obviously share any of the chat and all the information with everybody post attendee event stuff, so we can absolutely share all that. Are there any other questions for John?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, Catherine.
Yes,
Catherine.
Catherine. Just asking, is this project possible to be with abled and disabled artists, that is integrated, you know, or is just for disabled artists?
No, so absolutely both. And there's another question here about whether organisations or charities can apply. So an organisation can apply on behalf of artists. Artists can form a team. What we're asking is that the projects are led by disabled artists or artists. So it's absolutely fine to have collaborators who are able, but yeah, as I say, and teams are fine and organisations can apply, but it's an artist-led scheme.
Thanks, John. Any other questions?
Great. And as I say, the commissioning brief is on the website, so there's a sort of frequently asked questions section in there that goes through a lot of that detail. Excellent.
John,
yeah.
Can I ask a quick question? Is there anything that you're not looking for? I know that sounds a bit of a negative question, but is there anything that you're not looking for?
Yes, no, it's a very good question. Interactive works are out of scope just because they're the BBC, the technical aspects and the costs of putting those on BBC platforms are too high. In Culture in Quarantine 1, we had a lot of applications to do Zoom-based work, so to do plays on Zoom. Again, the BBC really struggles with that for sort of editorial reasons. It needs to be able to review the piece end to end, comply it, sign it off, put the appropriate guidance on it. So we're looking at linear audio and linear video pieces, relatively short form content that's easy to go out on iPlayer or on BBC Sounds. That's the kind of core focus.
Okay.
John, just one quick question. Patrick here from Paradise UK. I've just had a message. Is this full UK or is this only parts of the UK that can apply?
This is full UK, so England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, all eligible. It's fair to say that because of the balance of funding, so we mentioned 10 commissions. The idea is probably 6 of those, if I've got my maths right. Hold on a minute, just think too early in the morning to do mental arithmetic. Two each in, yeah, that's right, 2 each in Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales, and 4 in England.
John, if you've had a previous concept, does that matter? Does it have to be a fresh, brand new idea, or can you work on something you've already developed?
Doesn't have to be a fresh, brand new idea. You can work on something you've already developed. Obviously, if it's a high-profile piece that's already been broadcast, then that's not, the BBC is interested in things that are new to sort of wide public audiences. But yes, absolutely. And in particular, obviously, if you've got a piece that was intended as a live experience originally, and now you want to take it online because of the pandemic situation, then that's exactly the kind of thing that they're interested in. So yeah, it can be private. As with most funding opportunities, what we're funding is the work that takes place from the point of funding forward. What we can't do is pay you for something that you've already incurred the costs for. But yeah, absolutely fine to build on an existing piece.
Great.
Sorry, me again, apologies. Patrick again. Just heard another private message. Is the timeline, sorry, teeth back in this morning. Is there a timeline for the delivery of the project? You said that it's going to start, you'll be looking at decisions February, potentially for July. Is there any suspicion of an extension, or is there a maximum level that you'll say, right, it has to be delivered by?
It's not a hard stop. We'd said the end of June. That's an ideal. Obviously, we're very conscious that the production timelines on different works and depending on the support requirements and so on could be longer. So I think if you've got something that you think, well, I might struggle to do it by the end of June, then it's a fairly lightweight application process. So simply put those concerns. There's a question around key milestones. Just put that in there. Equally, if it's connected to an event, something in the calendar that's an important milestone event, then again, the BBC is very flexible editorial around this, and there isn't a hard kind of cut-off point in terms of when the money has to be spent by. So yeah, just make the case in your application.
Okay. Any more for any more?
Hmm.
No.
Well, thank you very much for the time and the opportunity. And as I say, we're very happy to take any questions through those various channels.
Thank you so much, John, and we'll share your details as well with everybody. And so if anyone does have any more detailed questions and they want to chat or email privately, then they can do. But thank you, that's really helpful, really informative, and fingers crossed that dancers get in there and make some applications, and I'm sure they will.
Yeah, and we had some nice dance pieces in the first round, and it's an ideal sort of format for it. So absolutely, yeah, that would be great. And
Brilliant.
thank you very much, Louise, and enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thanks. Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. Right, now, in terms of the network, in a lot of the conversations that we had, well, we all know that it's all a bit of a strange time at the moment, and so we'd like to ask a question, a broad question that we're now going to pull up our whiteboard for. If you could do that for me, Lindsay, that would be amazing. So we'd like to ask you a question, and you can either answer in the whiteboard, which we'll tell you how to do that in a second, or you can answer in the chat, and you can do it as many times. It can be stuff that just is the top of your head, or you know, anything. And the question is, and then when I said the question, Lindsay, could you just, how do I get out of this? I think I can remember the question. I can't access my screen now because Lindsay shared her screen, but that's okay. So the question is, what is current for you right now? What is live for you right now? What are the important things that are happening and doing? And what is it that we need to do moving forward as a network, as a group? So it is a very strange time. Hopefully with all the vaccines coming, we're coming post-lockdown, but I think what this period of time has done is has kind of made us all very reflective, has made us look very differently at how we present, how we work, how we interact. So I'd like to know really from you guys, what is current for you right now, what is important, and what is it we need to do as a network? So Lindsay, would you like to explain how we do the whiteboard?
Yes, so hopefully there is a little control bar along the top of your screen that has a view options, or it might come up as a 3 dots or perhaps more. If you click on that, it should bring up the option to annotate. And once you've done that, a second little bar should show up with a T for text. And if you click on that, you can click anywhere on the screen and it should allow you to type a message. Participants are not allowed to move things around, but as host and co-host, Louise and I might just arrange things so to prevent overlapping. But hopefully we'll start to see people kind of populate it, and then we can move things around as needed. I see Jen is typing already. She's found it.
So use the chat as well if the whiteboard is not particularly accessible or not something that you want to do. You can use the chat and you can feed back to us in any way. But it's sort of so what's current for you right now? What's topical? What's important? And what do we need to do? So they're quite big, broad questions, and there are no wrong answers. So if you just want to take a couple of minutes to have a think about that and write some things down brilliantly, we've got some stuff coming on. So what's live for you right now? What's important? And what do we need to do?
Sorry, in what context? Sorry.
In the context of what you do as a disabled dance artist, or as an organisation that connects with disabled dancers or dance artists, what's important right now? That I think we had a conversation in the planning meeting for this event where we were very much aware that so much has changed, but not a lot has changed. And actually that I think some of the things that for example, you know, a lot of us are quite used to planning a year in advance, 18 months in advance, and that's changed. So what is really important right now? What are some of the issues? what needs addressing, what do we as a sector, for want of a better word, what do we need to do together that perhaps we can't do alone? Yeah, what's really important to make sure things carry on, and that might be as personal as, you know, as an independent, I would like support with this, or it might be as a network we need to work on this. So it can be that, you know, it's very broad for a reason, but it's what's relevant to you right now, where you are right now. That might be as simple as support with getting work, or it might be something broader than that. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question? Okay. Reconnecting with those individuals who we usually see on a regular basis. Yeah. Keeping all our regular dancers engaged. Yes. CPD. So part of this exercise is really about also informing us as a network what we need to now be working on in the future, what the next event might look like, for example. And that could be about connection, supporting freelancers, needs, learning, CPD, how we still engage. So Zoom exhaustion. I hear you. Absolutely. I think I did 6 in one day last week, you know. And also how we continue to create an accessible world when we do eventually go back to normal. Some lovely things coming through. Please feel free to use the chat if there's no space. Thank you, Esther. Yeah, reflecting and sharing with each other everything we have learned. What can we learn from the use of technology to access meetings, conferences, etc.? Yeah. Challenges of blending in studio and digital, particularly on those who have access issues. Yeah. Supporting freelance artists both financially and emotionally. Yeah. Some great things come through. It's like a piece of art. Okay, perhaps another minute on this. And what we'll do is we'll share this in our sort of follow-up evaluation email with you all as well, so you can get a good sense. Okay. Yeah, collaboration is really key at the moment, for sure. Making sure our creating and organisational structures are accessible and really putting the voices of our dancers with a learning disability at the front. Yep. There's some amazing stuff here, guys. Thank you. Oh, returning to normality, the mammoth task. Absolutely. What does that look like? Indeed, what does that look like? Yeah, I'm planning for 2021-22, even though the landscape is still unsure. Frustration of being indoors. Oh, yeah. Okay, so last couple of minutes, or not a couple of minutes, last couple of seconds, I meant to say. Okay. All right, Lindsay, so if we save that and get rid of the whiteboard, and then if anyone still wants to put anything in, they can still put it in the chat. You can do that throughout the whole day, really. That's absolutely fine. But that's really, really useful. I think we will decipher that and put that in something that we can share with your guys. But that's really, really helpful in terms of the network moving forward to the next one of these that we do, but also sort of strategically with some of the wider campaigns and what have you. Okay, I know he's somewhere, but I'm absolutely delighted now that we have Andrew Miller, cultural consultant and broadcaster, the UK's government's first disability champion for arts and culture, and co-founder of We Shall Not Be Removed, the UK Disability Arts Alliance. And Andrew is here today to talk to us all about that and how we can get involved in the campaign and learn a little bit more. Andrew, are you there?
I am indeed. Good morning, Louise. Can you hear me
There you
okay?
are. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, Andrew. Okay, I'm going to go over to you now. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Louise, and good morning, everybody. So I'm here to tell you about We Shall Not Be Removed, background, what our aims are, what we've achieved so far, and what we plan to do over the next few months. So We Shall Not Be Removed was established in May by disabled cultural leaders as an emergency response to the pandemic. And it was initiated by Jenny Seeley, the artistic director of Grey Eye, and myself. Leadership was required as a result of the total invisibility of disabled people in the national COVID-19 narrative, which reduced us to ciphers of underlying health conditions and being extremely vulnerable. A strong and unified voice was also needed to ensure creative disabled people and disability inclusive arts organizations were adequately represented in online meetings that were shaping the future of the sector and were supported by appropriate access, which in March at that point really did not exist. We Shall Not Be Removed is the first disability arts alliance to be established since the 1980s. We're now 700 members strong. We're UK-wide. We're cross-impairment groups, cross-art form, with members representing every role and capacity in the creative industries. We secured funding from Arts Council England and Arts Council of Wales very quickly to provide essential access for all We Shall Not Be Removed online meetings in BSL and captioning as standard. The Alliance operates online platforms on Slack, with a website, through newsletters, filmed updates, social media and blogs to share our ideas, concerns and solutions. And we also host regular online meetings, develop policy proposals on behalf of members and publicly campaign to achieve our key aims, which are very simply to amplify the voice of disabled cultural practitioners and disability/inclusive organizations in the UK's creative industries through and after the pandemic. And secondly, to advocate for a more inclusive recovery by the creative industries. So what have we achieved so far? We've raised the profile of the challenges disabled artists face through this pandemic. We've had considerable media reach across the summer in specialist arts as well as national press. We issued an open letter to all 4 UK cultural ministers on the 9th of June, demanding safeguards to protect the future of disability arts as a consequence of COVID-19, signed by over 150 disabled artists and cultural leaders, including Dame Evelyn Glennie, actor Matt Fraser, campaigners Tony Heaton and Samantha Renck. We delivered a social media roar shortly after, sharing the resilience and rich tapestry of disabled people's art online, reaching a global audience through 17,000 posts on Twitter and achieving a UK top 3 trend, which was a first for disability arts. We then published the 7 inclusive principles in September as a response to the lack of disability-specific reopening guidance by the UK government. The 7 principles document offers resources and practical support to arts, museums and the film sector. And they were quickly endorsed by the 4 UK arts councils, BFI, British Council, and leading sector bodies such as UK Theatre, the ABO, Equity and the Museums Association. The 7 principles are also being published and adopted on the other side of the globe by Arts Access Australia. We've influenced some policy changes to arts funding in England and Wales that will deliver greater recognition of ableism and the discrimination creative disabled people face in the arts, alongside the issues highlighted by Black Lives Matter. We've inspired the British Film Institute's Press Reset campaign, to support disabled people's continued participation in television and film. The Audience Access Alliance open letter aimed at supporting disabled audiences across the live events industry, and BBC Arts Culture in Quarantine 2, a series of 10 commissions specifically for disabled artists, funded by all 4 arts councils and delivered by The Space in partnership with Unlimited. That was directly inspired by our campaign. And we've used our platform to influence industry and parliamentary activity to promote the interests of disabled people, from the Edinburgh Fringe through to the DCMS recent review of how the government responded to COVID. So that's really what we've achieved so far. I'll take you into a little bit more detail in terms of the 7 principles. We needed to create the principles because the sector that closed down in March is not coming back anytime soon. And even if it did, it didn't work for many creative disabled people due to the industry's endemic ableism. And outside of the disability community, ableism is still a largely unfamiliar term. But assuredly, as racism, sexism, ageism, and homophobia, ableism wrecks opportunities for creative disabled people. Put simply, ableism is the behavior which unintentionally excludes or actively discriminates against disabled people. It applies to a wide range of situations, from limited physical access to a limited understanding of the support deaf, neurodiverse, and disabled people need to succeed. Because the can-do approach to pandemic recovery is potentially making matters worse. New rules now apply, and so too do new barriers. For example, sector-leading bodies and individual culture organizations interpreted the government's reopening guidance, giving rise to discriminatory practice, which was being applied to disabled artists, employees, and audiences. So that's why we had to create the principles. They were developed by a partnership with Ramps on the Moon, Attitude is Everything, British Para Orchestra, and What Next? And the principles are specifically aimed at the non-disabled arts and entertainment sectors to support disability inclusion through this period. The focus is to ensure disabled people are not discriminated against as creative work begins again and as venues reopen. They offer practical guidance to support artists, audiences, visitors, participants, and employees. And they basically cover and highlight the importance of meeting the legal obligations of the Equality Act. All organizational activities must comply with the requirements of the law and make reasonable adjustments to operating practice to ensure that disabled people are not unlawfully discriminated against. We also recommend that organizations work to combat ableism by encouraging the use of the social model of disability. The focus here is to develop the sector's understanding of what ableism is, to identify and eliminate it from working methods. We encourage organizations to consult directly with disabled people when organizations are creating new measures that directly impact disabled people, whether that's as audiences or as artists or as employees. And it's really important that organizations provide clear, accurate, and comprehensive information about those measures to ensure particularly disabled audiences and participants can assess their own levels of risk and be prepared to adapt to specific inquiries or requests. We're recommending that the customer journey for disabled audiences through this time needs to be thoroughly mapped, ensuring its equality impact assessed and clearly communicated. We've also highlighted the importance of engagement of disabled artists. Whilst many disabled people are vulnerable to COVID, not all are. Perhaps a better word than vulnerable is susceptible. And so we've been encouraging the engagement of disabled artists in new work, as clearly disabled artists are a vital cultural resource in the UK. We're a global leader in inclusive arts, and we must ensure that's protected on the other side. And finally, we encourage organizations to celebrate disability in the workforce, particularly when difficult decisions around redundancy are being made. Organizations should ensure they celebrate diversity and embed anti-ableist principles to protect disabled people. So the principles can be found on the We Shall Not Be Removed website in all accessible formats, and they contain a link to a wide range of free resources to support people at every level in the arts sector to really get to grips with best practice. And it's important that everyone from management to programmers, front of house and box office understand their implications. So I hope that's a useful insight into what we've been doing. Very happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Andrew. That was really, really insightful. Does anybody have any questions for Andrew? Any takers?
I think I've just got one question for you, Andrew. Where do you see the long-term prospects of We Shall Not Be Removed going?
I hope it's redundant. I hope it is made redundant, certainly within the next year. We're looking at continuing the campaign through to June, because we think we can only really look forward in 6-month blocks. But if the news that's coming through about all the vaccines are as good as we're being led to believe, and they're efficacious for people with underlying health conditions, and of course that's not a given at this stage, we would hope that the campaign could start winding down as we head into the summer. But what we hope is that the lessons of the campaign continue through into the sector, led by existing disability and inclusive arts organizations, but also in the policy changes that we've helped bring around. I mean, for example, Arts Council England now have a disability advisory group, which was set up in September of area and national council members. It also has one on ethnicity and race. And that's an important impact that we've had, and hopefully will have long-term effects and guide the Arts Council in terms of its delivery of Let's Create, the 10-year strategy, which is probably its most inclusive ever, but it needs to ensure that it supports disabled people to re-engage with culture on the other side of this. Because the other thing we saw, and as you know, Patrick, there has been considerable loss of confidence by disabled people in event attendance. And that's going to take some time and the right environment to be able to build back up to the levels that we were previously seeing. You know, disabled people made up 12% of the national audience in England. So it's going to take some time for that people to feel that confidence to re-engage with large, mass events again, I think.
Any other questions? No takers? Going once? Going twice? Yeah, I would concur with that. It is fabulous to hear about it. And I think, Andrew, is there anything that we can do as a network? What can we do?
I think you need to be mindful. I would really recommend and I'll put the link in the chat shortly for the principles. I think it's really useful to get your head around the principles. We will update them in January in light of the vaccines and the likely reopening of the industry next summer, because I think they're going to remain relevant. And so I think, getting your head around those ideas, and particularly, doing some research and learning around ableism and what that is. I think that's the fundamental message and legacy probably of We Shall Not Be Removed, is really to put ableism on the table. It's absolutely the reason why we do not see disabled people competing at an equal level for roles in the sector. It's why levels of employment and engagement are lower with disabled people than they are with other protected characteristic groups. And so we need to all do some work around that to ensure that we understand what ableism is, we recognize what it is and identify it, and start eliminating it from our organizational structures. And it's, you know, some of it is quite straightforward and easy, like access. You know, I'm sure everybody will have thought about access in this conversation at some point, whether that's for audiences or for artists, and that's important that that continues. But I think the other side of ableism, which is the less obvious side, which is the sort of more almost the more psychological, the attitudinal, is more difficult to identify. So, for example, you know, are you able to pay members of your board, for example, if your board is unrepresentative and you need a more representative board? Are you able to pay those people or pay for that the time? Because one of the things to remember is if you're disabled and managing a chronic disability whilst doing a day job, giving your time away for voluntary service on a board is quite a big ask. And actually not being able to be being paid, as most board members are not, is actually a barrier. And it's a barrier to why disabled people aren't very well represented on boards. And this is something that the Scottish and the Welsh governments have led on and are now looking at actively pursuing, paying people who are from underrepresented groups. So things like that. And it's really sort of going through all your organizational practice and working out actually where are the gaps, where are the things we're not engaging with disabled people well, and how can we address that?
Yeah, it's interesting because in all my years and sort of working, I very rarely hear the word ableism. And it's flipping that psychology a bit, isn't it? I think, and what and the definition of that word and how, yeah, that's really, really interesting, really making me think that is. Thank you. Any more questions? We've got time for one more if we need to.
Hi, I've got a quick question. Hi, Louise. Laura Evans from the Arts Council. I've been following the 7 principles, and we've been sort of pushing them forwards to our organisations. I think one of the questions that's come up with a few of my MPOs is around the customer journey and mapping that journey and support that's available for doing that. I mean, are there organisations or individuals that can kind of be contacted to enable an organisation to do that? Because I think people are just not unsure of how to do it, particularly small organisations.
It's a really good question, Laura. Thank you. And also, it's also really good to hear some feedback on the 7 principles, because we put them out there, and everyone kind of went, "Yes, great," but actually we haven't heard detailed responses to them. There are organisations out there. You know, Attitude is Everything, Ramps on the Moon, Power Orchestra. They're all organisations that can be consulted. But actually, you highlight a very interesting area. There is no organisation that is responsible or has a remit to support disabled audiences.
Okay.
And I think that's something that's missing currently. There's also an interesting thing going on at the Arts Council, I don't know if you'll be aware of this one, of developing a National Arts Access Card, which Abid Hussain has been leading on. That will require some sort of infrastructure to lead it. And it could well be that turns itself into some sort of advisory organization that could assist organizations with that. But it's an interesting area that is actually currently missing. But there are loads of disability consultants, and it's certainly in the music environment. Attitude is Everything is an organization that I would recommend to do that kind of work.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. And I'll feed that back, because it's just useful for us to know where those gaps are. Thank you.
I think to just add to what Andrew's just said, one quick thing is, we talk about the arts industry as a whole, but when you drill down to the different sections of it, you then get those microfractures, and that's where trying to find someone that covers everything becomes very difficult, because you'll have different opportunities and different issues depending on if it's dance, music, theatre, crafts. So I think there is a big task to try and join those dots together. I think the other key thing to be aware of is that crossover between professional and community dance. and especially in COVID and looking at the 7 principles and some of the work we've done as Paradance, that has been one of the biggest issues, is trying to build that relationship, especially where people are doing COVID guidance and social distancing and other bits and pieces, is building that connection between the professional industries and the community industry sometimes don't always mix. So I think it's something we all need to consider.
And of course, the other issue within all of this as well is the UK-wide situation, which can also add some degree of complexity. We very much took the view at the very beginning we had to be UK-wide because the issue was UK-wide. But of course, culture has devolved in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, and so there's additional complexity there. So if you're operating on a UK basis, there are loads of hurdles to jump, because you've got to go through, you know, the 4 UK arts councils and all the rest of it. So there can be issues in that. But fundamentally, the issues affect everybody across the UK. There is no, you know, disability does not recognise any borders.
Yeah, sure doesn't. Andrew, thank you so much. I know that you have to go now. But yeah, can't thank you enough. That was really insightful and informative, and has got us all thinking, I'm sure, about how we can get involved and do a bit more with the Alliance, for sure. So thank you for your time this morning. I know it's
A pleasure.
precious.
Have a good day.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Bye-bye. Okay. All right, everybody. So I'm aware that some of you might want to use this next breakout session to also grab a cup of tea or a wee, and that's absolutely fine. So we've got about 20-ish minutes on breakout groups, and some of you will have filled in your form responses. If you didn't, do not worry. Lindsay has allocated you a breakout group to go into. If you do have any problem when you get put in that breakout group, just come back to the main space and we can speak to you and put you in a breakout group that you would prefer. The breakout groups will have the title of your topic at the top, so you should be able to see. But again, if there are any issues, just come back into the main space. I will read out what the breakout groups are. So breakout group 1 will be talking about post-COVID survival. What is the landscape for disabled artists and disability-led dance work? Breakout group 2 will be working practically with restrictions in place. Breakout group 3, disabled artists connecting with organisations, and this session will be led by John from Attenborough Arts Centre. Hello, John. Breakout group 4, how do we make sure the world stays accessible post-COVID? Breakout group 5, working online, accessibility, sustainability, audiences and ideas. And breakout group 6, what support is on offer to make dance accessible? And Patrick is going to lead that from Paradance. We will also put into the chat those breakout groups listings so you can see. So we will see you in about 20 minutes. Okay, Lindsay, would you like to put everybody in breakout group spaces?
I will. And just to say as well that I think maybe you mentioned this, Louise, but you can come back to the main space if you really need to come out and go back into another room. That is possible. All right, so it'll just whiz you all over automatically, I'm hoping. So we'll see you on the other side.
See you in a bit. Okay, so thank you, everybody. I hope you got something from those breakout groups. We were going to do another whiteboard, and I was saying to Lindsay, I feel like I haven't seen some people speak or heard people from you guys. So I think if it's okay, I would quite like to change that and do a verbal and in the chat feedback from perhaps a nominated member of each of those groups. Did you hopefully get the message to pick somebody? If you are the nominated person from your group, could you put your virtual hand up, please, so that Lindsay can see and I can see who you are if you are the nominated speaker for your group? Amazing, thank you. So if it's possible to maybe have 2 minutes feeding back per group, that would be amazing if that's possible. So Beth, I noticed that you put your hand up. So should we start with you? If in your group, do you want to tell everybody what group that you were in and then just summarise for a couple of minutes?
Yeah,
Hi everyone, I'm Beth from Southeast Dance. I was in group number 4 and we had how do we make sure the world stays accessible post-COVID? So we had a couple of things that we discussed. One was very much just the continued kindness. We've seen quite a lot of coming together during this really hard time, and we want that togetherness and happiness and kindness to just continue even when we start to become a bit more separated as we come offline and go back into real life. Also, accessibility has been a big thing, making Zoom accessible using subtitles, bringing in BSL interpreters, and we want that to continue into spaces as well, into buildings, making sure buildings are accessible in every way, bringing BSL actually into studios as well and theatres a bit more. Let me have a look at my list. Subtitles on Zoom, I think that comes under what I just said about accessibility. And then also just the fact that this has been a really good opportunity to open the dialogue around ableism and accessibility, and that is a starting place, and it continues and it spreads more as we go back into, hopefully, back into what normal life was. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Beth. And if anything's missed from that group, please feel free to keep adding from the chat if you're in that group. Laura, I think I saw on chat you were in your group. Do you want to tell everybody which group in a brief summary? Oh, you're muted.
That would help, wouldn't it? Sorry. Yeah, so I was group 1 post-COVID survival. What is the landscape for disabled artists and disability-led dance work? So I think first of all it's not going to be normal going back. There were some concerns, but also there are opportunities to be expanded on as well. One of the things people talked about was the lack of confidence, people in audiences, but also people coming back to join workshops and to do contact-based work as well. That's going to be slower, and how do we address that and support people? Hopefully people have learned to be more adaptable. I think similar to what Beth said, how can we keep using that technology moving forwards and ensure that it's still high quality and provides the support that's needed. And hopefully organisations have started to think differently and seen things as opportunities of how they can do more of this moving forwards. There was a worry about the increased costs, if there's more space needed, more support needed, and all of that, and whether things are going to be more expensive, so that increase in funding required. There's also the idea of running face-to-face work, also supported by digital virtual work at the same time, to increase accessibility and sort of have a wider reach for people to join from further afield without traveling. And there was a comment about online additional support is needed at home for disabled artists, and I think sometimes that gets forgotten, that there's support around technology needed at home to join those sessions, so that's something to factor in. Yeah, general fears around income for teachers and people delivering work, and how's that going to work, and how can people continue to do that as their freelance jobs and support themselves. And a positive is new ways of teaching have been uncovered, new methods that will hopefully move forwards and add to people's creative ideas. And yeah, just the further reach, people being able to join sessions from further afields, different areas of the countries, and internationally as well. I think that was it.
Thank you, Laura. Brilliant. Michaela, did I just see you in the chat that you're happy to do group 5?
Yeah, that's right. So we were doing working online, accessibility, sustainability, audience and ideas. So we talked really mostly around what we have been doing, and generally I think we were quite keen that some of this online stuff is going to need to continue. We've certainly as an organisation created a demand and been able to reach audiences, like Laura was just saying, internationally and nationally, that we wouldn't usually reach, and want to continue to reach those people. So I think we talked about the fact that this has created and forced us forward in a in our online content and our ability to engage online in a way that we wouldn't have dreamt possible. And actually, it can be quite simple. I think the idea was perhaps daunting before, and now it's not. And we talked about the benefits of being able to engage like this and hear what's going on in different parts of the country and the challenges there, and how we might address those together. We also talked about one of the challenges online being the support from home that's needed for disabled learners, and that being sort of a bigger hurdle to overcome for some people. In terms of longer term and what we can do, taking projects out to people where you can't go in, perhaps sending things to people, projects for them to engage in, to feedback. Dance Fest was saying they're going to be doing a festival online, and some people might not be able to or might not want to engage in that in a performative way, but inviting access to watch. So perhaps for those people that aren't so keen to engage live online, offering that opportunity to watch so that there's still some engagement for those people. So yeah, I think I've covered everything generally.
Brilliant, thank you. Next group, is anybody from any of the other groups? Lindsay, can you see any hands up? We've got 3 groups left. Natasha, brilliant, thank you.
I'm happy to talk for group 2. We were looking at working practically with restrictions in place. There was only a couple of people who've kind of had a chance to do that, and we talked about the kind of fear around not only dealing with the fear that we're all living with, but the fear of all the millions of things that we have to overthink in order to work that way. There was a mention of how much longer it takes to actually put everything in place that needs to happen. So who was it who said about 5, was it Katie that you said about 5 times longer to actually prepare a session, or maybe it wasn't Katie, 5 times longer to kind of plan a session. So the fact that we're investing all this extra time, which we're used to doing as artists, we're used to overworking ourselves, that's what we do. But on top of that, the outputs that we're achieving on a huge amount of extra time mean that financially we're even more strained and not able to kind of achieve the outputs that we could before for the number of participants that we could before. So that's a huge challenge that's overstretching us on small budgets. We talked a little bit about how amazing it would be if there could be some sort of mechanism for us to share with each other, like top tips for how we're surviving. So things like go-to policies and risk assessments in different venues and different types of situation. Just some sort of way of us communicating with each other and going, I just did this, it really worked, it was amazing, or oh my God, I need this and I need it by tomorrow. Just because I think we're all struggling the same struggle, but quite separately. And I think lots of people are kind of creating their own really great networks, which is brilliant, but it would be great if we could kind of pool those resources a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, is anyone in my group, have I missed anything?
No. Just to pick up on that point, Natasha, about sort of sharing stuff, my virtual door is always open in terms of that, and anything that we can disseminate through the network. I'll give you my email at the end of this, or certainly when we send out stuff from the whole of the session, I will send out my details. But anything that's currently happening that you want to share, any blogs, voices, projects, I'm really always keen to hear about what's happening, what's going on, and really that's the role of this network, is to try and disseminate and share that kind of information that you were talking about. Thank you. John.
Actually, I'll do it now.
John, has anyone from your group spoke yet?
Yeah, not yet, no. No.
Do you want to then?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I started off by apologising for rambling and for my note taking throughout the day. I was just I've had a bit of a mad last 24 hours. Talked mainly about the difficulty of starting to try and develop a relationship with a venue. and how sometimes doing a little bit of background research on that venue that you think might be good for you is a good way forward, because then you're able to suggest kind of where you fit into that program of that particular venue, maybe rather than say trying 100 different kind of quite generic messages that go out to different venues. And also being open to looking at other opportunities that are available within those venues. So just spent a bit of time explaining kind of everything that Attenborough does, and said, well, you know, you might come to Attenborough expecting or wanting one particular thing, but you might go away with 2 or 3 different ideas for the future on where your work might fit in with that particular venue. And just talked a little bit as well about like various programs that that Attenborough or other venues might have, and different things that maybe don't get seen, like the outreach program, or offering subsidised space to artists and things like that. That's about it, I think.
Thank you, John. And Patrick, if you could, is there anyone from your group? And if not, you, could you share?
Yeah, we were talking about what support was on offer. I think the main things we discussed was about the opportunities that are on offer through Sport England and Wales and Scotland, Northern Ireland, and the relationship and the joint relationship there seems to now be in part between arts councils and sports, whichever country they're in. I think there is also an opportunity that we were talking about in terms of other support for disabled individuals or disabled artists to access mainstream networking events and programs that are now being offered in regards to collaborations between the arts councils and local disability groups. So for example, if you want to attend this meeting, there is possibilities for grants to be able to support an interpreter to be attending the meeting, so you can still be involved and engaged. I think there's also some of the things we talked about was about the support around changing slightly the model of that whole collaboration around it being health and well-being, and as well as creative and engaging, seems to have been able to support and engage a lot more people going forward in terms of crossing that divide between being physically active and actually being creative and artistic going forward. And the other really area we discussed was about that whole concept of competitive dance and the opportunities of when or if there is an opportunity for people to be competitive. And we were just updating in regards to that there are collaborations between the British Dance Council and ourselves and others in regards to starting to enable more people to be more present, to be able to compete and present on Dance Online, as well as then that support that can be offered practically without using online materials. Because again, one of the key criteria that come up is that we've thrown everything online, but we're not doing anything offline. And there again, there have been some organisations that have produced some offline materials and support that can be used to access for any, for example, care homes, residential centres that may not be able to go online. And again, I've said I'll put that to the information, I'll send it all out when we send out all the information going forward.
Brilliant. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, everybody. I hope you got something from those breakouts. It's always very difficult to know how much space to give, and I was saying to Lindsay in the break, one day we will literally just have one big conversation. Okay, and I've put my email on the chat if anybody wants to send me any information or just introduce themselves if I don't know you and your work, or if you have a blog or an idea for a blog, or you want to just get in touch with me. You know, the network is about sort of sharing knowledge and also supporting you as artists. So please do get in touch. And I know that other people, Abby has also put hers from Unlimited on there. So and we will share all of the chat with you. Okay, not quite saying goodbye yet, but just before we do, most of you will be aware of the sad loss of Dave Toole. So we felt it was apt to just take a couple of minutes to remember Dave really, and the wonderful trailblazer that he was. So many of us knew him here, and Dave spoke at a couple of our networking events over the years, so it just felt really fitting today that we should just give him a little nod and remember him, and give thanks to the work that he did. Really, he touched so many. Stopgap Dance Company and Dave's family are collecting donations in his memory, and part of those funds will go to a next generation of disabled dancers and theatre artists. You know, Dave said that in his career that he always wanted to support sort of disabled, talented dancers coming through in the industry. So that's one way that we can all support, should you want to. I think, Lindsay, you're going to put the link for the funds there. So we're going to play now just a couple of minutes of an excerpt of Artificial Things that he was in with Laura Jones by Stopgap Dance Company. And just to say that BBC 4 broadcast Artificial Things full version last Wednesday. Following on from the broadcast, the full film is available on the BBC iPlayer for UK audiences. And I think if you go on Stopgap's YouTube channel, you can also get the full version. But we're just going to take a couple of minutes to watch a bit of Dave and just have our own thoughts and remember him.
Just to say as well, that if for any reason this video doesn't play very well at your end, I will just share the link in the chat as well. So let's see, I might just need to set up the sound. Hopefully you can all see.
Artificial. Sorry about everybody. I think Zoom's just over wide internet and what have you. But yeah, remembering the wonderful Dave tool there. We can share that link, that YouTube link, into the chat and then share that with you so you can watch that with your own internet connection and watch it at the right speed. Thank you, Lindsay. Brilliant. Okay, so we have come to the end of our networking event. I just wanted to thank Lindsay, Patrick from Paradance, and John from Attenborough Arts Centre, and all the speakers, Andrew and John, But most of all, thank you to all of you for giving up your time this morning and being part of our, I think, first virtual networking event. I think it's our first. It's been wonderful to see you all and spend some time with you this morning. And like I say, please do get in touch with us if there's any comments. I know that we will be sending you a link out post-event just to obviously share all the information that we've gathered today. If you have any suggestions or comments that you want to make for next future events, or you know somebody that would like to speak and share something, do also get in touch. I'd like to thank Lynn and Nicola, the BSLs, as well. Thank you very much for your time this morning. So yeah, I think it's just to say a big wave and thank you very much to all of you. And hopefully I'll see you at the next one. Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.